Hi, this is Jeff from S4I Systems. Let's talk about makefiles. Now, Better Object Builder uses make to do the actual builds. Make is a Unix and Linux tool for creating objects from source code. Now, make doesn't know anything about ILE and objects in the QSys file system. It just knows about its Unix stuff. And Better Object Builder is what sort of bridges the gap between the Unix tool and our QSys file system. Okay, but makefiles are a key part of the build system. So let's take a look at it. Now here I have a text editor, and it's open to a sample project of some source code. So I have, for example, here's an RPG program, and here's some DDS for a physical file. And over here is a logical file. Okay, and here is a makefile. Now, the makefile is going to exist in the same project directory alongside your source code. So let's take a look. Now, this is a Better Object Builder makefile, which has 4 different sections to it. And we're going to go through that, and you'll learn how to set up a makefile for a build on your own system. And it's not too complicated. This stuff looks pretty complicated, but it's not really that bad. Okay, well, the first section to the makefile is this header section. And you actually don't even have to modify that. In fact, you shouldn't modify that. It's just pasted in at the top of a makefile. And what it basically does is it figures out where the generic IBM makefile is, and it includes it into the project. Now, the generic makefile, that's used under the covers by Better Object Builder to tell make all the commands that it needs to know in order to build QSys objects. So it turns a definition that says build a module, it turns that into a create RPG mod command, for example. So this top section figures out where that is and includes it. And then it also creates these targets here. So we have one target, like PFs, LFs, display files. We have one target for each type of IBM I object. And this is done just to keep things very organized, and also so that you could actually rebuild an entire type of objects in your project. If you wanted to rebuild all of the logical files for some reason, you could just say make LFs, and it would rebuild all of the logical files. But once again, you don't actually have to touch anything in this section. It's just there to get things working. Okay, the second section here is where you list out all the different objects that you want to build. And they're categorized by type. So in this example, we have one physical file that will get built, one logical file, a command, module, and a program. And all you do is you specify the name of the object that you want to build. Now, not its source code, not the name of the source file, the name of the object. So, and it's the name of the object as viewed from the IFS. Because remember, make is a Unix tool, so when it looks at the QSys file system, it's seen it from an IFS, an integrated file system point of view. And when you look at those objects, IBM always sticks this little file extension on the end, right? So why don't we go take a look, just as an example. So if we say, let's do work link, qsys.lib/bob_jeff.lib. That's where I compiled the sample project. And so we see these objects that are up in here. We see the compiled versions, and right, they always have this little extension. The module has .module, program has .program, etc. And it's always uppercase. And so that's how you specify it here. Now, if I want to add a file, maybe I have a test02.file. I just type a space and add it. Maybe here's a test03.file. Now the next time I do a build, Make will see this and it will attempt to build test01, test02, and test03. And you do the same with the other object types. If you don't have a service program, for example, you can just leave it empty. It won't do anything. Okay. Now the next section is where you specify dependencies, object dependencies, and custom compile settings. Now dependencies, what does that mean? Well, we have two forms. The first one, the first dependency listed is always going to be the name of the source file that the object should be built from. So for example, here's a physical file. test01.file, that's the physical file object, and its first dependency is the name of its source file, test01.pf, and that's this right here. And so when make comes to this, it's going to compile test01.pf, the source file, into test01.file, the object. Now, the second type of dependency are all the ones that come after the name of the source file. And those tell make what this object uses. So for example, let's look at this module here. I have test010.module. The source code for that is test010.rpgle, right? But it uses logical file test01a. So we specify that here as a dependency. And what that tells make is if the logical file ever changes, the source code for it ever changes, the next time you do a build, make will also rebuild this module because it knows it uses the logical file. And so that's done up here on the logical file. It's referencing as a dependency the physical file. Now we specify for dependencies the object, not the source file. We specify the source file here because that's telling it what to compile. But the other dependencies, we specify the object. And you just repeat all of this for any object you want to build. It's just the name of the object, a colon, and then the name of the source file, if there is source file, and then anything else that it depends on. Now, something like a program, well, it doesn't have a source file, but it has a list of modules that comprise the program, and so you do that here. The name of the program object, colon, and then the name of the module. If this had, say, 2 modules, I'd say something like this, and it would bind both of those modules into the program. If it referenced a service program, I would just say something like this, and it would link to that service program. Okay, so that covers dependencies. Now what about custom compile attributes? Okay, so remember that generic IBM I make file that I mentioned. It gets brought in under the covers when you do a build, and it spells out all the steps necessary to build various types of IBM I objects. And it also has a set of variables inside. These are make variables that are used to set compile attributes. For example, target release. We set target release to, for example, V7R1. And when you install the Better Object Builder system onto your IBM I, you'll probably go into that IBM I make file and you'll customize some of these settings. Maybe you want your stuff to build at target release V6R1. So you'll go in and you'll set it to that. And then all of your various projects that reference that particular generic makefile, they will inherit all of those default settings. But what if you have an object that needs to be built with a custom setting? Well, that's no problem. You just come in here. Why don't we do it with this module? You would just specify, just like the dependencies, the name of the object, a colon, and then the name of the compile attribute. In this case, we want to do target release. And you say target release equals v7r1m0. And it will use that value when it does the compile, the create RPG mod. And in fact, we're doing the same thing up here with text. So text is the text description of this object, and we're saying, hey, for module test 010, set the text attribute to read some names. And if we come over here and take a look at the module, sure enough, the text description says read some names. Now, if you want to get a list of all the different attributes that you can override, you can go to the Better Object Builder wiki, which I have here. And if you go to the Create Makefile wiki page and click on Overriding Compile Settings, it has a list of all the different compile settings that you can override. They don't apply to all objects, and all objects have all of these, of course, but you'll know, for example, activation group, that's for service programs and programs, and you can override that if you need to. And the same with the rest of them. Okay, now the last section of a Better Object Builder makefile is, again, another thing you don't have to edit. It's just pasted in at the end. And it's basically just an include statement that includes some other makefiles out of a dependency directory. Now, Better Object Builder, for certain types of objects, it can figure out what the dependencies are. So, for example, at this time, in this state of development, for fixed format RPG, it knows what files and externally described data structures are used by the RPG. And it actually figures those out at compile time, and then it creates a tiny makefile in a directory called .deps, dependencies, and it puts it in there. And this statement includes it so that it gets brought into the makefile. Let's go take a look at it. So here we have a dependency file that was auto-generated, and it's called test010.d. And that's the dependency file for test010, the module. We click on it. We see in here, it's just the same thing. It's a little makefile that says for test010.module, it's dependent on test01a .file, the logical file. Well, that's the same thing that we specified right here, isn't it? So that actually means that we don't need to specify this here, because it will be detected automatically. Now, certain things you do have to specify. Well, we certainly have to specify the name of the source file. It can't auto-detect that. But we don't have to specify the dependency on the logical file that's in the fspec. And since Bob is under development, it's likely that more object dependencies will be added as time goes on. So, for example, this logical file where it specifies the dependency for the physical file there, I think adding that as an automatic dependency detection is something that's on the roadmap in the near future. So we probably won't have to define that pretty soon. It will be able to compile a logical file, look inside the DDS, and see that it's dependent on the physical, and it will automatically create a dependency file for that. Okay, so that's how you make a makefile for Better Object Builder. The Bob project file that you get off of GitHub contains a file called makefile.sample, and that is a sample makefile very similar to what you're looking at now. So if you do want to create a new Bob project, it's pretty easy. Just copy that sample file, remove the .sample from the file name, and then start editing. And remember, just fill out the objects you want to build in the second section, and then fill out the list of dependencies and any compile attributes that you want to override in this section. And that's it. If you want to get any more information about this, you can go check out our wiki, and it's at github.com/s4isystems/bob for the project, and /wiki for the actual wiki, which has a lot of good information on how to create a makefile and how to use the Bob system. Okay, thanks for watching.